everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Securing Success Show. I'm John Mattis. My great co-host, Tracy Ninny, is on assignment. I say that like we're like in a real news show, but she's actually on vacation. But she wanted to desperately be on this show. So she may jump in. She may be from the beach. She may have a cocktail in her hand. I don't know. We'll play it by ear. But either way, we have a great show. We have Tom Meehan with us today. So, Tom, you out there?
Hey, John.
There he is. There he is. So, super looking forward to this show, Tom. And I'm not sure a lot of people know because it's been quite some time, but we used to work together every day. You know, we were counterparts at Macy's and Bloomingdale's, which was the fun days. But I miss you, brother.
Yeah, I miss you too. To think that we used to exchange emails and we were close enough that we talk all the time. And then it's super excited to be on the podcast, especially with you. And it's fun. Like when I see you on LinkedIn, and I was excited about it. So happy to be here, happy to chat. And we did have some fun times. And I think it was different, right? It was different.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pre-COVID. Probably way before COVID, but it was, a different world, but either way, still the same problems. And you know how it is when you're both with the same company, all of those problems are much more exacerbated than they were in real life. It's just because that's just the way it is.
Yeah, definitely. So, the gift cards, the credit cards to ORC. I would argue that if you named it, there was something we did together. Some stuff we probably don't want to talk about. Most of it was good.
Either way, as most people that are watching this know, because everybody's in the industry, okay, great stuff. Can't always talk about it, but always a memory and always something that you'll never forget. So, So again, welcome to the show. So I'm going to do a quick bio in case for some reason you don't know who Tom is. He's pretty high up there and a very visual figure in the industry. But so Tom Meehan, as CEO of CONTROLTEK, is responsible for steering the company's strategic vision and making high-level decisions that drive our growth and innovation. Tom sets the overreaching direction for the core business areas in this role, which comprises of Tamper-Evident Packaging, EAS, RFID. He's instrumental in shaping long-term strategy, meeting evolving needs, both retail, financial, cash in transit, which is kind of a new terminology that we've started talking about, manufacturing and logistics. Tom is very well known in the entire retail loss prevention world as a thought leader who shares his knowledge and the retail technology editor of LP Magazine. He's host of the Cash News podcast, so he's familiar to all this stuff, as well as co-host of the LPRC podcast, CrimeScience. So welcome, Tom. I had to take a couple of breaths to get that one out. So
thank you for having me. And I'm happy to say this, and I probably never said this, John, to anybody, but I appreciate all the support you gave me over the years. We worked together for I think 15 years, and through many iterations of different jobs and different changes. And I really do appreciate it. And I often tell folks that I was so fortunate to work with different people that were really good to me. And you're 100% one of them, where we got to work side by side and stuff. And I think without getting specifics, there were a lot of people that couldn't work together. And for some reason, you and I always were able to figure it out. So I really appreciate the support.
Well, I appreciate those comments coming from you. They're heartfelt and mean a lot to me. So, and totally unsolicited. You were not paid for this broadcast, nor those statements. So, even better. I do have a question that I've been dying to ask you this question for quite some time. So, you were a practitioner for a very, very long time in the business, in the investigations world, organized crime, fraud, digital fraud. And then you made a completely 180 turn and went to the solution provider side, but not only just to the solution provider side, but you went into like a very high level position in running an organization. How did you, tell us a little bit about how that transition happen, and what were some of your takeaways as to where you were and then where you needed to go going forward, being more business focused than investigative LP focused?
Yeah, it's a question I get asked often. And first, for starters, I mean, I spent more than 20 years in retail asset protection and some IT and some things. And I don't know if even 10 years ago you had said, "What are you going to do?" I would probably say the same thing you would have at that time, right? Like, what do you mean? I'm gonna take this linear path that I've taken my whole life. I started as a store detective, then a regional, then a director. Like, this is what you're supposed to do, right? Like, do so. Really, it comes down to, I had some mentors in my career that said, hey, you don't have to be linear in your direction. I was in a good role, enjoyed what I was doing, really enjoyed working with all the people I was working with. And people were approaching me saying, hey, why would you want to do something different? And I'm not a sales guy. For anybody that knows me, I like the technology side. I was your textbook investigator, right? Like, I like to do the investigation, do the interview. But I am a tech guy that always likes to learn. And John, like, I really mean this, emulating some of the things you did. Like, I remember years ago, getting involved in the the Association for Financial Crime Investigators. People, why are you doing that? Well, I said John was involved. Like, it's got to be good. Where a lot of people didn't do those things. And through the network that I grew, I guess about 10 years ago, people would come up and say, would you ever do this? And I said, no. And then just real story, a good personal friend of mine said, hey, what are you doing? Like, you got all these really good opportunities and you're not even talking to people about it. And I said, oh, I'm an LP guy. And I actually remember this vividly, saying to him, I'm a dumb security guy. I catch bad guys. This is what I do. And he said, Tom, he said, for me as your friend, and he introduced me to someone at a very, very large company that I didn't end up working for. And he said, the interview went great. And afterwards, you just thanked them for your time and you never did anything with it. And he said, you're missing out. And things were changing. And I had a few different offers. And I said, hey, I want to make some technology. I want to get involved in technology and invent things and have fun. And I came to ControlTek. At the time, the company was, 40 years old. It was not a new company. And I came in really focused on technology and product and saying, I really think I know how the industry works. I think I can help. It's been a wild ride. I got to get a couple patents, make some things that just couldn't do in a publicly held company, which was super exciting. Like, things that I know, John, like you and I, like you'd have to ask 50 people to write something. You could actually speak. And so those were really rewarding personally and professionally for me. And then, but I'll tell anybody who works in retail as an executive level is retail is much more complex than a lot of other businesses. So, we have a massive banking vertical. I mean, bigger than our retail vertical. And I was intimidated. And then I went into it and instantly was like, wow, this is not much different than what I did before. And I would argue that all of the things we learned doing interviews and preparing, go into a meeting with someone very high level from a central bank, and it is easy compared to what a day would be for an LP person. So a lot, if not a lot, of the operational execution things translated so well into business. And then this is what I say to everybody: my recipe for success has always been, based on three things: grit, ownership, and constant learning. And so I was just like, I got to learn this banking business. And I did. And I got very involved in the business, which organically grew to, hey, Tom, we think you can do more than product, and then started taking over business units. And then today, running a company that, wasn't the plan, but it all stems from all the things we did, John, things we did together, like, difficult conversations and being able to navigate it. And I was at a recent, event, and someone was like panicking, and I said, no one got hurt, no one got killed, nothing really bad happened. We'll get through this. Let's sit down and talk about it. And then afterwards, they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, it's not, it's going to be fine. Like, we're going to fix it. And just being able to sit down and do all the things that we did every day. And meanwhile, I'm not worried about anybody getting stabbed. I'm not worried about anybody getting shot. And so, a bad day in business is a bad day in business. It's how you handle it and how you work through it. So it's been a really interesting ride, and I'm grateful for the industry. The industry has been phenomenal. And I'm grateful that, I was able to get into other industries. I'm sure you felt the same way. Like there's a whole nother world outside of it. But when you do it for 23 years, you're like, hey, this is what I do.
Yeah.
So
I know exactly what you're saying. It's a tough transition, but first off, great answer. But two things that I want to take from that. Number one, you mentioned interviewing, so I want to congratulate you. You were nominated, or you were selected as CFI of the Year by Wicklander and the International Association of Interviewers. So congratulations on that.
thank you. So really very a surprise for sure. Not what I expected, but really awesome.
I love that you are. It's like you are an academic in the industry as well. But earlier in your response, you talked about the mentors that helped you along the way. Can you tell me a little bit about those mentors and like who they were and how they helped you in this transition? Because this is usually you don't see this type of transition where you're a practitioner and then you go right into driving a business at a high level.
Yeah, I would say, and this is not canned, but John, like you may not, I don't think mentors need to be designated as mentors. Like I can remember vividly conversations with you that helped me position myself in the future, good, bad, or indifferent. Like, and they weren't bad, but I think the whole mentorship piece is that if you really do the right thing, and it's not about babying people, it's about accountability and helping them, but letting them do what they need to do. It helps. And I had some great mentors, and I really do genuinely think of you as one. And because I thought you were willing to challenge the status quo, and a lot of people in our organization were maybe they were political and weren't willing to say what they really thought, even though they knew it was better for the company. And so I learned that working with you on a couple of things where it was like, hey, we've got to get this done. And people might not like it, but at the end they'll know it's the right thing to do. And so I genuinely appreciate that. But I worked for amazing people. I worked for Ed Wolf. I worked for Mike Lamb at one point. I worked for Chad McIntosh, and some of the folks I worked for were amazing people, but were tough guys. Like they expected flawless execution. Like there was no gray. Like you were gonna execute. But what that drove me to understand is that it was possible if it was real. I will tell you that there was times in my career where people said, hey, not only could you do more, you can. And I mean, even you and I talked about transitioning into different roles. And so the mentorship piece was, I would say it was a mix of sometimes tough love, but also allowing me to be me, meaning, okay, they recognize this is where Tom will thrive, and I think, I did interviews. Interviewing was a passion of mine, and it wasn't, there were times I was able to do things because of that. But when I speak to specifics, I can remember the day, Chad McIntosh, I remember this vividly. I think I wrote about it in my book when he said, hey, what do you want to do? Like, what do you really want to do? And him saying, like, your brain is just so technology. So like, this might not be for you. And he was like, you might be holding yourself back by not taking a risk. And he said, you'll always be able to come back and be an LP. And it was almost like letting me go because I was super loyal. I was never going to leave, right? Like I was one of those old school guys that was like, hey, I'm not going anywhere. Like Bloomingdale's was good to me. Like I'm going to be good. I worked two places my whole life. Like people don't realize like that's what it was like. And so someone recognizing that I needed that. And then also, I remember I tell this story all the time. It was, Paul Paglia, an industry guy who I worked for, we never had a negative conversation. Paul, I tell this story all the time, would have a way of, being able to always educate you and train you, but make sure that you were doing the best you could, putting a really challenging environment. But looking back, I didn't realize it was very intentional. And so there were so many people that I worked for in LP, but then outside of LP, working with other operators and, Bloomingdale's, the one thing I would say, it was a big, small company. Like I interacted directly with the CFO on a regular basis. I presented to the CEO on a regular basis. It's funny, like, you see Tony Spring as the CEO of Macy's Inc. I remember when he was a GMM and interacting with the CEO. So you learn like I don't think he would ever say, a mentorship room, but you learn, okay, I have to learn how to present to this individual. He is not the same individual that I normally present to. So I think mentorship is so important. And I think you can have a formal mentor, or you can pick the phone up and say, hey, I need help, or you can just lean into people. And when I got to ControlTek, one of the things I'd say, or normally say this, I was blessed about, is that I'm still the same Tom Meehan, good, bad, or indifferent. And so I still will talk to the same people. It's not all business. And there's not a day that goes by that someone doesn't text me or reach out for something that has nothing to do with business. And then that makes me feel really successful. That makes me feel successful. Winning that award, CFI award, was a surprise. But what was really cool is that there are people I grew up with that I've known for 25 years plus that are hugging me, talking about it, that we're celebrating together, and that's what's really important. So I think mentorship is the most important thing, and I also think it's outside of work. Like, be a part of the community. If you're involved in sports, go out there and do that. And help people, because the simplest, littlest statements make life changing, things for people. And it isn't always the formal mentorship. Sometimes it's just saying something. And like I can remember things with you sitting in a room that we can't talk about now, where there was conflict, and you're like, hey, we're going to do this, this, and this, and some people might not like it, but we'll get it done. And those things matter, and they kind of grow with it. So I've really been fortunate. I've been surrounded by amazing people, and I'd also say that I had leaders and mentors that let me really go out on my own. That said, hey, when you need help, let me know, but go try this. And that was super, super important for me. And I tell people all the time, like, I'm a firm but collaborative leader. Like, if I think I need to tell you, I'm going to tell you, but I'm not going to tell you if I don't think I need to. I'm just going to assume you're going to do the right thing, because that's the way people were always to me. And 8 out of 10 times it works. 9 out of 10 times it works most of the time. And then every once in a while you got to step in. So it's a probably the most important thing. I've been just graced with great surroundings, not even just leaders, just people. And mentors don't need to be senior. Mentors can just be peers. When someone's good at something that you like, or you see them, call them, talk to them, just do it.
Yeah. I've said this to Tracy before, but in regards to mentors, sometimes, like, you think of a mentor and he's going to guide you, he or she's going to guide you in the right direction, endorse you, be an advocate for you. But sometimes you can have a mentor that is going to be all the things not to do.
Yep.
Like, you could say it, like, I don't like the way they handled that. And if I was ever in that situation, I would do the exact opposite. I consider those to be mentors as well.
Yep. Yeah. And I often say that, John, you're 100% right, is that there were folks I worked with that were tough leaders that I always did very well with, but they were still tough leaders. I don't know that I'd emulate the exact same process, but I would still say they were mentors, because they were very good to me in my career. So I agree 100%. And I love them to this day, because being a tough leader isn't a bad or a good thing. It's just what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about leadership styles. So, as a practitioner, you were, directly and indirectly involved in a leadership position for thousands of retail folks within Bloomingdale's. Now you're in a situation where you're not only driving the human portion of leadership, but now you are also a business entrepreneur, where you are driving the overall profit margins for a company that supports the protection industry. Tell me a little bit about some of the dynamics between those two types of leadership styles.
Yeah, I think I think I used to think they were different. I really think I talk about grit all the time. Like, I started as a starter tech in Home Depot, right? Like, in the New York market, and probably one of the toughest markets in the world. Probably looking back, I'm shocked that the way it did. But I always say, hard work is not the word I use. It's grit. It's perseverance. It's rolling up your sleeves. It's doing the stuff that people don't want to do. It's working the hours. That's a recipe of leadership. And I believe in Bloomingdale's and Home Depot and in ControlTek is people will see that I'm willing to put the time in with them and legitimately put the time in. And that's always been something I've seen. Like if I go back to my investigation days, and you may even remember there were investigations that lasted weeks that, they were working 20 hours. Hey, I'd be sitting right with someone and didn't need to be, quite honestly, didn't need to be. And that exudes the leadership that I still to this day think happens. So that grit and perseverance of getting it done is part of it. And I don't see a big change. The ownership piece is the biggest change, I think, in this role versus the other role. And in the other role, I owned it, but when you ultimately own it, you realize that it doesn't matter what. There's a million reasons why it failed, but it's your fault. And you've got to take that ownership 100%. And I go back to sports, like I wrestled a lot of times, and I think wrestling really helped me with that because I had no one to blame. Like I was the guy. No matter what I said, and so I remember like growing up, going like, "This is on me. It has to be." So I think in this role, the ultimate ownership is real, and it really doesn't matter what caused it. And I use the analogy when I talk to folks on my team. If FedEx doesn't deliver the package didn't get delivered. We've got to figure out what we could do differently and how our customers still didn't get what they need. And that is a difference today than I think in our past, because in my past, you're managing a lot of people without authority. You were doing things and you took ownership on shrink and investigations, but at the end of the day, the total ownership is there. And then the piece of today, what I would say is different is the learning piece. I really believe the lifelong learning. I, as a CEO, employ and drive that almost at an intense level of like, in order to be successful, I want my team to constantly have the availability to learn. And I think in my past, it was very much on you. You had to really go out. If you didn't, you would get the training you needed, but that was it. Like you had to go out and find other things to do. Where here, as a C-suite person, I'm going, no, we need to put it in people's face every day and help them with self-development. And I've seen a lot of great things in the 8 years I've been here, where it's, hey, soft skills and your technical knowledge and all those things together. And hey, I want you to be a better person. And I think 99.9% of the population actually recognize that. And not only do they work harder and get it, but you know what? If someone stays at ControlTek and thrives, it's great. If someone leaves ControlTek and thrives, it's great. And it's part of that leadership journey. I'm not sure in my past, I think we were very laser focused on specifics. Here it's every facet of the business. I'm not sure if that answered your question, but
no, perfectly answered it. And there's kind of an add-on to that is, it's obvious to the folks that are in the industry that you lead with passion, and that carries over to a lot of things that are outside of your everyday span of control. So you love getting involved in lots of different things within the industry, and some people sit back and say, "Oh my God, he's involved in so many things. How does he balance it all?" So how do you balance it all? I know you have a beautiful family. We're connected on social media, but it's like, how do you balance everything that you have your hands in?
Yeah. So this is probably the answer that no one likes me to say is I'm old school. Like you want to be the CEO, work-life balance doesn't exist. You've got to be committed to your family always. But the reality is, my family comes first on anything, but I make no mistake about it. I don't watch TV. My free time is with my kids and my wife, and the rest of the time I'm working. No one makes me do that. No one asks me to do that. It's what I choose to do. And I tell my kids all the time, I don't want you to emulate that, but that is what it takes to be involved. And I do genuinely, if I'm involved in something, I care about it. So like when you see me, involved in the ISCPO or Clear, it's something I genuinely care about. And I grew up in. So like I watched, and I know you with your ecom background, like I hear people talking. I'm like, when I started in Bloomingdale's, we had a website. We weren't shipping anything. It was before that even occurred. So like I literally lived through, we didn't have, it didn't exist. And, so these are things I grew up with. And if I can still find ways to be involved and stay fresh, I genuinely care about it. Like I watched ORC, you remember, John, it was organized retail theft to ORC back in like I lived through those things, and I have a passion about them, but everything's a choice. So my favorite, I talk on stage all the time is, and you may even remember, is that Bloomingdale's, oh, did you watch Breaking Bad? Did you watch this? Like, no, I didn't. Like, and it was not because I didn't want to, because I made the choice to read, to go do things. So, I don't know, is it good for me? How is it good for the family? Probably not, right? I'm saying that out loud, but I have a wonderful family. I have a super supportive wife. It's all my children know, so like you'll always hear me say I need to be home on the weekends. Tonight I'll be home for my son's wrestling practice. And if I was in Europe, I'd be home for his practice. I would take the flight. I would take the pain to do it. But I would encourage everybody, like, I'm not Elon Musk, I'm not Jeff Bezos, but there is a DNA. And John, I know this, you and I worked on things that other people just would never be willing to put the time in, because it's just, and that's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just, everything's a choice. And I tell people all the time, don't emulate it. But if you really, really, really want to get to the top of any game, you've got to make the sacrifices, and like find a professional athlete that won't have the same story. Like, find anybody in that, and in any level, you've got to put the time in. But I believe that family comes first, but I also believe that it isn't necessarily a balanced choice every day. What am I going to do today? What am I going to do today? And I don't get involved in things that I don't have a passion for. Like, I sit on a board for a company that's against human trafficking. I don't get anything for that. And it's something, I think that's important, and I think I can help with. Clear is something I watched start, and I'm super excited to be involved. Interview and interrogation, like, that's been a passion of my whole life. And so if I can give back, if I can help someone not make the same mistakes I made, then I win. And as I get older, it's much more rewarding for me to have someone say, hey, can you help me with this? And realize that I actually make a difference. Because I don't know, it probably wasn't until 5 years ago that I actually knew anybody even read anything I wrote. Like, it was just like, am I doing this for any reason? And then once you get someone emailing you that says, hey, I just started the industry, I read this, it was helpful, it changes everything. And that's really what drives me. But family always will come first. But the reality is I do have to make choices that other people won't, but they're choices. No one holds a gun to my head. No one makes me do it. I'm not a good sleeper, so I guess that helps a little bit. I'm sure that will catch up with me one day. Yep. But it's all choices. And I struggle with it because I spoke at John Jay a few months ago, and people are like, oh, I want to work 3 days a week, and I'm like, then you don't want to do what I do then, and you don't actually want to do a lot of things, because that's not the world we live in. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you can figure out how to be happy, I always look in the mirror and go, like, I wonder if I just traveled and took a civil service job, where I'd be today. I'd be retired. But I don't know that that's what made sense for me. So a little bit long-winded there, but I tell people all the time, it's not easy.
It's not easy. And I super appreciate and respect your honesty, because I don't think that there's the perfect recipe for this. It's very difficult to be highly successful at a high level and impactful every day, and not, in the back of your mind, still stress about the fact that you're not spending enough time at home.
Yep.
And then vice versa, when you're at home saying, what am I missing something in the office or at work? And it's and just saying that sounds not so great. But I don't think there is a perfect recipe for this. You just have to be dedicated to both and work really hard at it.
Yeah.
So we got a couple minutes left. So I got a couple of things that I'm dying to ask you as well. So, I mean, this is it's a good thing that Tracy just texted me, and she's having such connection issues. which it could be a reality. She's on the beach, like with a pina colada with the umbrella, like everything. That was the whole pretext of the show. But you can't make Connection Nation is too much. But I love the amount of stuff that you get involved in the industry, and just coming off of the whole work-life balance. You actually got your daughter involved in a podcast where she actually spoke, and she was young. I mean, I'm saying like 7, 8, maybe 9 years old, the oldest.
Maybe 9. Yeah,
Where
probably
she
8 or
spoke
9.
to her peers about how to stay safe online.
Yeah.
Which I thought was, number one, was adorable, but number two was just like, it was just a great effect, and I'm sure she got a lot of listeners from that.
Yeah. So my kids are rock stars, right? And if you just to finish what you said, if you figure out the balance, let me know, because it is the thing that aches me, because as I talk to folks, everybody says the same thing. The kids are going to be gone. They're going to grow up, and you're going to miss out. Don't forget it. But this is a good example, John. Like I wish we planned this out. You set it up. Is my kids are my kids because I'm their father. Like my daughter, is a rock star. She is. She's a great student. She's very socially involved. She plays softball, but my daughter will read 5 or 6 books a week, and she just loves to read. And so I was sitting in my kitchen talking about cybersecurity, and she was like, "Oh, what about this, this, and this?" And I said, "Hey, you want to do a video?" And I could tell you this. That was unscripted. That was me saying, "This is what we're going to talk about." And we did do 2 takes, because one take she said something about something I said that we probably shouldn't do, but that was unscripted. That was her, and that was me spending time with her, and reading, and she actually wrote. I wish I knew the name of it, because I would, if I would say it on the podcast. There was a comic book about child cybersecurity that she read a few years before. And at school, funny story, someone said something that didn't make sense. It was something around a video game. And she came back and said, "Dad, someone said this. Is that how it works?" And I'm like, "No." I said, "Maybe there's something I don't know about, but I've never heard of that." And she said, "This is what I think." It was about like an account getting hacked, and how they got their account hacked. I'm like, hacking is a really tricky thing. And then she started to talk about it, and she offered to do the video. And yeah, it did very well, much better than I thought, and super proud because she did it on her own. As she gets older, it's funny. She says, "I would love to do it again, but it's a little more embarrassing because now, you don't want your friends." Like now she's in a different age bracket. But she asked that I went to her school, and she's 13 years old, she's still young. And when she was at that time, she didn't want me to go to the school. When the beginning of last year, or the beginning of this year, they had a career day, which, John, however much that I kind of separate family, I really do. Like I don't really talk about what I do. I want to focus on my kids. So I went, and she said, "Please go and talk about it." And I talked about all those things. And I said, "But you know that?" And she said, "Yeah, but I'm older now." And she said, "I don't want to be the kid that tells people they shouldn't do stuff." But she's great. And it was a great video, and I'm super proud. My son, of course, wanted to do one too, but and he's a rock star too, but he's also a boy, a younger boy. And I said, "When you can sit still in the video, you can do it," because he said everything right, but he was like fired up on it. And I'm like, "We'll do one with you one day." He is super technically inclined. So he gets into the detail with it, but it's just, it kind of is the opposite side. Is my kids know what I do. And I'll tell a funny story. Like, I travel every week. My kids know what I do. And my kids know what I do at a level that sometimes they're explaining it, and I'm like, "You explained it perfectly." Sometimes with ControlTek, they're going like, "Well, I'm not 100% sure on the banking stuff, but my dad did this, this, and this." And I'm like, "He's a police officer." "No, it's not. No, you're not listening." Like my daughter would be like, "No, no, no, no." So when I won the CFI of the year, I really didn't know, and someone had posted on Facebook, and my wife literally texted me, and she actually put this on Facebook if you didn't see it, and said, "You're a certified flight instructor?" And I'm like, "We've been married, we've been together for 20 years. Like, you don't." you know, and I laughed, and my daughter was like, "Mom, that's certified forensic interviewer. He's probably a certified forensic examiner, investigator." She's like, "Come on, it's that. Like it's one of those." She says, he doesn't fly, he can't see, he doesn't have, and my wife is like, "No, I know," but she's like, and my wife says, "You're pretty hard to keep up with," and I don't go home with work. Like that's the one thing I don't do because no one wants to hear it, right? And I never did before either, John, because the war stories are good to us. The last thing you want to do is tell your wife a war story. Like, wait, what? Someone pulled a knife on you? Like, what? So I just drive that line. But yeah, it's why she did it though. Like the whole work life balancing is that it's the most rewarding thing that my daughter is proud of what I do, and it matters. And my daughter will say like, yeah, you're making sacrifices for us. Like you're not working for you. Like we get to live where we live. We get to live the way we live. So those are the most rewarding things in the world. We have a beautiful house and a beautiful neighborhood just outside of like all of those things. So the choices afford that. And I know what I'm talking about. Like, and it's rewarding. Do I think it's the best thing for the family? No, but she wanted to do it because she knew. She's like, Dad, like this is important. Like we should do this. So it's one of my prouder moments. I hope she does it when she's older because she's just so much more articulate than she was then now. But it's a super proud moment, and I see her. She is a performer. Like she can speak on the dime. She's much shyer than she looks like on video, but when she turns it on, she turns it on. It's pretty
I love
wild.
it. I love
Yeah.
it. And I especially like how, you know, family doesn't want to hear about war stories. Friends,
Oh
somewhat
yeah.
if they're really good. But it's a tough business, and it's tough to articulate what you do. I mean, seriously, like for the longest time, my mother would come into Macy's and she'd go, "I didn't see you." Like she thinks I would be standing at the door,
Yeah.
like I did that job a long time ago, but Mom, I'm 55 years old. I'm not standing at the door anymore, but it's hard to describe what you do. But let me ask you this, last question pretty much. What's Tom Meehan's legacy? Like you work, you got your hands involved in everything. You're so involved in the overall industry from a passion and from an evolution perspective. But what's Tom Meehan's legacy when you say, "Hey, I don't want to go to work anymore. I want to just sit on the beach someplace"? What's that legacy look like to you?
That's a hard question without keeping it really simple. Like I just hope people, um, you know, you know, people got something out of it. Like that the industry got better. Like I really genuinely, this industry is different than other industries. And when I look at, I hope all the things I'm doing help people. That's it. And I don't know. And I can't wait to retire. Like people are like, "You'll never retire." I'm like, no, no, no. I can't wait to sit on the beach and read a book. Like that's the thing. Like I that is the goal. The goal is to do all this so that I can just stop, and really just get that book and not worry about it today, because I would. You made the point before. I can't turn it off because I'm responsible for people and customers, and I would never do that. So, but I hope that all the things that I'm involved in help people. Like that. That's it. In everything I do, and it's exciting to get to be on the podcast with you, because I can remember being literally being 25 or 26 year old working with you and thinking like how different the industry is. The world is, forget about the industry, the world is completely different than the day I met John Mattis. I don't even know what you like. That's how crazy the evolution is, and it's exciting to be here with you. But if you'd asked me that question 10 years ago, I would have said to make lots of money and do this and do that. It's not. It's. I would love for people to go like, "Hey, he was a good guy. He actually helped. He actually created something, or he helped drive a mission or statement." And I don't think I would. I think that's a newer thing. The ControlTek thing. Hey, look, my job at ControlTek is to get this business to be bigger and bigger, and that's easy. Those are easy. But at the end of the day, this, most, not most, almost all of the things I do extracurricularly don't yield a single penny. It's to help, it's to help the industry. It's to work through. And we're fortunate, right? It is a fun. You do have bonds here that I don't know that you have other places. So it
Yeah,
doesn't hurt to
small
go to a
industry.
meeting and see people that you literally, you did, you were in the trenches with, and trenches that are not like trenches in other businesses.
Yeah. I mean, you could literally, like, people you are with all the time or associated with, you've known for 30 plus years.
Yes.
Like, you knew when they were a baby. So it's like, it's a small industry. No matter what you say, the cyber industry, the fraud industry, the loss prevention industry, and retail, it's a small industry. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody's worked with somebody, and everybody knows everybody for a very long time, which is probably my favorite part of the overall thing. So
yeah, definitely.
Well, sir, thank you so much. It was great to have you on the show. I should point out that I am very envious of your beard. I wish I could grow a beard like that.
You can.
Seriously, this beard, this is like years in the making.
You can do it. You can do it. You just have to be willing to suck. You have to go through the 8-month process of having like patches, and then it took 8 months, and now it's uncontrollable growth.
I wish. Yeah. Well, sir, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for being on the show. Thank you for sharing not only your career, your mentors, but your leadership style and a little bit about your personal life. So important. Love to do, actually, it would be great to do a show. The unsung heroes of this industry is family, especially wives and significant others. They got to put up with the calls in the middle of the night. Maybe that's a show for the future, but I appreciate your point of view, and I appreciate the nice words. So makes me feel good inside. Makes me gonna enjoy my weekend.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to actually get to spend time. I don't think the audience, in case John and I haven't talked probably outside of LinkedIn, probably in almost 8 or 9 years.
Yeah,
really. Yeah. So like, it's awesome. This is what's good about the industry, right? Like, it's like, it's a time warp in a good way. So I really appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate also if even 8 years ago, if you said, hey, listen, I'm going to host a show and you're going to be on it, I never would have thought that would happen. That's just not what I do. I'm an investigator by trade. I'm still an investigator. It's like, I just pretend to be a podcast host. So, but thank you, sir. Really appreciate you. You're an amazing guest. We want to thank everybody for watching. We hope we're able to help you learn, grow, and lead. So see you next time on the Securing Success Show. Take care, everybody.
Bye.